In the midst of a civil war, bases were falling left and right. One of the biggest group bases had just been griefed, which left many players without a place to live at. But then, a player named Athena Stong quietly sent out a message in a fallen group's Discord, proposing the idea of Babylon. Nobody really paid any attention to the message except for one player named Silent Interloper. That's when Babylon was born. In this video we're gonna go over the crazy history of the group that built Babylon, featuring stories from how they built the server's largest megabase in absolute secret, how they debuted their existence by pulling off the Dragon Egg heist, and how after turning the entire server against them, they incited their rival group. Up until their unfortunate downfall, this group has many stories to tell. Oh, and of course, I'll be touring the base at the end of the video, so keep watching. Now a little info about the server. This all happened on a server that has now been shut down, called Specterium. This was a regular Anarchy server owned by Edok, the same person that now owns Uneasy Vanilla. That's why most players that will be mentioned in this video either play Uneasy Vanilla or have quit after Specterium shut down. Babylon didn't just come out of nowhere. To fully understand all the insane stories that I'm gonna tell you guys today, I need to set the scene a little bit. So there were two big groups on Specterium that played a role in the history of Babylon. The first one was created in February of 2020 by a player named Liquidity X and Roy Schouten. Team V became a very powerful group very quickly. In April of the same year, Aurora Empire is created by Razok with Solo Maker and Mindspace. They started a small base called Fort Imperius. But soon they would invite HCI, Sigma over Pi and others, which would lead to this base growing very quickly as well. The server now had these two very powerful groups, and Razok from Aurora Empire proposed an alliance with Team V. Well, Team V accepted this. This would later be known as the New Alliance. The New Alliance was now the sole power of the server. AE was expanding fast and Fort Imperius was getting too small. That's when a member of Aurora Empire proposed to open up their personal base to become the main base of AE. This would be Catrapolis. But they would also create a new sub-branch called the AE Army. This was a place for new players and these players would stay at Fort Imperius. There was a problem though. The Aurora Empire army started getting out of control, which was almost expected because there were a bunch of undergeared players that were just talking the chat the entire time. And they weren't just annoying Team V, they were also annoying the community. The worst offender was the leader himself, Razok. But with his army, Aurora Empire now was the biggest group, having at least half of the player base in their group at the time. In May, the Fort Imperius got leaked, and Team V would grieve it. This was the first act of war, but it wasn't until two Team V members attacked two AE members at spawn, when all hell broke loose. The New Alliance was broken and the civil war began. Bases were griefed like Sigma over Pi's solo base, the Prismarine Shores. And Catrapolis, the main base of AE. Almost all AE members at spawn were killed because Team V started their incursion and they named it Inversion. They would simply camp spawn and not let anyone enter or leave. The war wasn't good for Aurora Empire. Multiple members left because they didn't like being targeted all the time and there was just so much drama around it all. Soon after this all, AE got disbanded and the civil war ended. It was during this war that Athena Stong proposed Babylon. Silent Interloper was the only interested player, and he went to Babylon on foot because he had nothing to lose and nowhere else to go. Babylon started just like any other base, a plot of land. They started terraforming the base and Athena built the ziggurat. That's when Sigma over Pi was invited, but when he arrived the base was still in its infant stages. The three of them started planning out the base and soon after more players were secretly invited. The first player who was invited after Sigma was 8ZI, due to his building skills and his friendship with Sigma. Soon after they decided to also recruit Chaosic, as his main base, Catrapolis, was griefed by Team V. Furthermore, he was extremely proficient at building farms, and he had a history with HCI and Sigma, because they were both in the Aurora Empire together. Lastly, Eccentric Cat, a famous old player, was invited by HCI due to them having history together and him being a great builder. Later on, more and more players started to get invited, such as Paul Oak, Real Rocket and Mindspace. The building of the base was one of the most active times of the group. When all the terraforming was done, the group hopped in the Discord call and drew up a map by hand to decide where each build would go. For hours, Babylon divided the base into various sections, which would be divided by the tall, majestic walls of the base. In order to prevent burnout, there was a general timeline of how long each build would take, which would ensure that building wouldn't stagnate. Along with having strict deadlines, the group also had some strict rules which all members had to follow. The obvious ones were to not leak codes, to not leak any pictures, and to follow the theme of the building style. In general, these were pretty understandable rules. However, one of the golden rules, and the oddest one, was to not talk about Babylon's existence. The democratic leader of the group, Athenas, ordered for everyone to keep the group's existence secret. Even after the group debuted eventually, Babylon did not consider themselves to be a group. On the contrary, they considered themselves to be a collection of builders trying to create a megabase. Each member contributed to the base on their own way. Chaotic and HCI built farms. They built the iron farm in the pyramid, the gold farm, pumpkin, bamboo, guardian, they built it all. Athena built the ziggurat and the walls. Eccentric Cat built a very cute city in one of the sections. HCI and Real Socket together built the dock area. Sigma built the hanging gardens and the Tower of Babel, and also added a few small details across the base, most prominently the archways along the pathways. Silent Interloper had built a tavern and a coliseum and the Tower of Knowledge. Work was hard but rewarding, as after only 3 months most of the base was finished. Along with it being a mega base, it was also known as the one base that had all possible farms imaginable. Despite no player knowing the existence of Babylon, it was by far the richest group on the server, surpassing Team V on every front. This is when Babylon was in its prime. The base was just built, all the members were active, and I think now it's time to talk about the tales of Babylon. The insane events that this group was involved in on Specterium. The Dragon Egg has been in possession of many people. One of the last owners was Eccentric Cat. He dropped the egg by accident when showing it off at another player's farewell party. A player named Zoid picked it up, making him the new owner of the egg. HZI owed Eccentric Cat a lot. He made him not quit the server, and because of that he found himself in Babylon. So HCI decided to take the egg back from the one who took it. He came up with a plan to deceive Zoid. HCI asked Babylon members to help him create loads of god bows, so it looked like he was capable of duping. He then showed this proof of duping to Zoid and told him that together they could dupe the Dragon Egg. As to not scare Zoid away, HCI promised him that he would come alone and naked. However, HCI did not show up completely alone. On the other side of the portal from where he and Zoid were meeting, Eccentric Cat and Silent were hiding, waiting on HCI's signal. So it was time to pull off the scam. In order to get Zoid's card down, HCI came up with this fake dupe. He told him that if you break a chest, while at the same time remove the item inside it, one item would go in your inventory, while another copy of it would drop from the chest. So, he put the chest down, Zoid put the Dragon Egg in, and the second HCI took the egg out of the chest, he logged out. That was the signals for the others to go through the portal and take out Zoid. The heist was pulled off successfully, and Babylon now possessed the only Dragon Egg. This was also the revealing act of Babylon as a team. After Zoid was dealt with, HCI logged back in and gave the Dragon Egg back to Eccentric Cat, the rightful owner of the egg. The Lawrence case. This is one of the biggest things to ever happen to the server. The events took place not long after the Dragon Egg heist. So after Babylon revealed themselves as a group, a lot of groups took notice. Some wanted alliances, and so a large alliance of teams was made. It was called the Second Alliance and it was organized by Triggered Cat. Every big group in the server joined this alliance to keep peace, including Team V and Babylon. This caused for a spawn event where all members of the alliance would do a spawn meetup as a show of fate. Almost all members of the alliance came to the event, including Babylon. However, a mysterious new player named Lawrence ST also joined the spawn event, along with the rest of the server. Soon after, another mysterious player named Frostsight came to the spawn event and started to attack players, crystalling Lawrence ST in the process. Many players in the alliance tried to kill Frostsight soon after, but he got away. After the event had ended, many players including Babylon accused Frostsight of being a Team V alt. Team V profusely denied this, and as there was no conclusive proof at the time, the accusations were not met with action. A couple of days after the event, the mysterious player Lawrence ST had come back, and this time he had written a 15-page manifesto outlining his grievances of Team V. The manifesto was written in Old English and it outlined the cruel nature of Team V and their crimes against the server, such as griefing bases, killing random players for fun, and ganging up on smaller groups. Many people did not take him too seriously though. Now this Lawrence guy was extremely well geared despite having a fresh join date. And he even held this spawn event where he gave away 50 free kits. At this point it was very clear that Lawrence ST was an alt for someone. The question was, who? After the spawn event organized by Lawrence, the server became more friendly towards him. However, that all changed when there was another Second Alliance event. The Second Alliance event was also at spawn this time, at the Reunion Castle, a famous spawn structure made out of obsidian. Once the event started, Lawrence started attacking Team V members. Some Team V players were killed and he even caused Liquidity, the leader of Team V, to combat log. Once Team V got re-geared, they started to hunt Lawrence down. Lawrence finally fled after more and more players started to join the fights, and the very next day, Lawrence along with some other players started to grief this castle. Many players of the alliance, including Babylon members, started to fight Lawrence and try to stop him from griefing it. Sadly, it was not enough, and Team V members called on everyone to stop repairing the castle, as it would only give Lawrence more obsidian to mine through. It had seemed that Lawrence had won. Despite being an enemy of the alliance, there was a good portion of the player base who did not hate Lawrence. Players found Team V increasingly unpopular, and when a player was finally standing up to them, it was met with sheer support. After the scuffles between Team V and Lawrence worsened, there was one instance where Storm, a member of Team V, again was killing players at spawn and stealing their gear. This was the final straw for Lawrence, and he gathered 3 chokers of TNT with a simple goal. He was gonna eliminate all the Team V bases. And that's what he did. Lawrence griefed all 3 of the Team V main bases in one day. Renas, Team V's resource base. Equilibrium, Team V's member base. And finally, Ebola, Team V's magnum opus. Who was this Lawrence guy? And how did he grief every Team V base out of nowhere? Well, it's time to reveal the truth. He was Paul Oak, a member of Babylon. Secretly, the leader of Babylon, Athenas, knew who Lawrence was all along. Lawrence didn't just find and grief those Team V bases out of nowhere. Babylon had found all these 3 bases before, by base hunting. Because, well, Team V was the biggest threat to Babylon. So Babylon needed some sort of power to hold over Team V if it ever came to that. Babylon members spent days base hunting for these Team V bases. Athena found one base, Chaosic found another, and 8CI found the last one. So Babylon had all the coords to the Team V bases, but I suppose they just didn't want to grieve them right now in fear of Team V coming after Babylon. But now knowing that Paul was in Babylon and all these coords to these bases were already gathered by Babylon, it's not that weird that he griefed these all in one day, right? And actually, Athena and Chaosic griefed one of these 3 bases in the name of Lawrence. Now after this all happened, Team V was obviously visibly upset. They had lost all their progress and resources. In their Discord they were discussing who Lawrence could be, until a player named Mirjandro used some deductive reasoning to work out that it was very likely a player named Paul Oak, a member of Babylon. Lawrence's name history was very sus. The book he wrote was very LARPy, something that Paul would do, and a lot of things just matched. Now after Team V came with this conclusion, they confronted Silent Interloper about this, and Silent just admitted it. Once Team V confirmed this to the rest of the server, all hell broke loose. Team V confronted Paul Oak about it, and well, Paul claimed that he did it because of all the terrible things that Team V has done in the past, grieving Prismarine Shores and all the other bases and killing all the players. Soon after Team V went to the Second Baptist Church, the group base started by Paul Oak, and grieved it. After being berated by Team V even more, Athenas, the leader of Babylon, admitted that he knew about Paul Oak's identity from the very beginning, and that he, along with Chaosic, grieved Team V's Megabase, Ebola. However, this all backfired on Babylon, of course, and put a massive target on Babylon's back. This all brings us to the next story, Operation Mirage. After Paul Oak had been outed as Lawrence ST, the player that killed many Team V members and destroyed all their bases, Team V as well as the entire server condemned Babylon. All members of the base were put on kill on sight with massive bounties on their heads. Understandably, Babylon was starting to sweat. There were many players who were hunting for Babylon with malicious intent, and it seemed that at this rate Babylon would be found very soon. After some discussions in the Babylon Discord, the group decided that they would employ some heavy countermeasures to protect their base and most importantly expand and widen their horizons. Player Sigma over Pi would start the concept of a dummy base. About 6,000 blocks away from the main base, he created a small base with a lot of resources. Beacons, farms, buildings, and the nether portal would lead to the dummy base. And Sigma of course hoped that base hunters would be happy with all the resources that this small base would offer, so they wouldn't go look further. And surprisingly, this strategy worked. Notorious Team V members named Mirjandro found the dummy base while base hunting for Babylon, and he was fooled by it. Although the strategy was successful, the group knew it was a simple short-term solution to a long-term problem that was likely never going to fade. This was when the idea of a second base was brought to light. A second base would be a good fallback base if Babylon was ever grieved, and it could be a good opportunity to invite new players and expand the member count. This second base was eventually dubbed Castra Nova. Like Babylon, it was going to be a massive undertaking. If the group's expectations of the base would match reality, there was no doubt that Castronova would be the successor to Babylon. However, there was one obstacle on their way. Team V. After losing their main base and their other farm bases due to Babylon, they were out for blood and desperate to salvage some of their pride. They were constantly camping spawn, paying players to go hunt for Babylon and doing anything that would inconvenience Babylon just a little bit. Eventually, Sigma over Pi and HCI cooked up a foolproof plan. Operation Mirage. Paul Oak wasn't the only person with a secret alt. Sigma over Pi confessed to HCI that he was Shrang23. Sigma had built up Shrang to be a famous base hunter in the server. He had used Shrang's accounts to grieve multiple important bases from courts that were sent by actual base hunters like Athena, Chaosic and himself. So in the eyes of the server, Shrang was just this very good base hunter that somehow found a lot of bases. And Sigma over Pi was gonna use Shrang to complete Operation Mirage. The operation had three main goals. The first one was to distract Team V by getting them to leave spawn so the members could move valuable resources from Babylon to the new base without getting caught or followed. The second one was to convince Team V and the rest of the server that the base was actually located in the end. The last goal was to incite Team V using Shrang23. 2 weeks before the operation started, HCI, Athenas and Silent went to the end and created a fake outpost about 80,000 blocks away from spawn. In order to make the outpost as legitimate as possible, the outpost was littered with various resources such as building blocks, XP farms, elytras, G-sets and everything that would make it credible enough. 2 weeks later, the operation was greenlit. Shrang23 would go end hunting for Babylon and would come across the outpost by sheer luck. Soon after, he would DM Liquid the coordinates and send screenshots. After he did this, Shrang got ambushed and he had to log out. But his logout spot was trapped by Athenas and HCI. Liquid made his way all the way to this end outpost and started to 2v1 HCI and Athenas. During the fight, Athenas made a big mistake by accidentally putting on their chestplate instead of their elytra, and they fell into the void. So HCI was left to 1v1 Liquid, but he had to get his armor repaired, so he flew away. Once HCI ran away, this gave Liquid enough time to free Shrang. The entire ordeal looked realistic, and looking at how stacked the end outpost was, it would be clear that Babylon was located in the end. Furthermore, it was also confirmed that Silent and the others had moved all the resources to Castranova. Finally, after some chatting in the VC and the Team V Discord, Shrang23 had finally been given the member role in the Team V Discord, meaning that Sigma had successfully incited them. Babylon, against all odds, completed Operation Mirage successfully. Sadly, things didn't start to look too good. Near the end of 2020, member Silent Interloper was showing a screen share of Babylon to Triggered Cat, but he had his coordinates on. Soon after, Trick traveled to Babylon, but once he arrived there, he found the base too beautiful to grieve, so he decided to keep it a secret. Sadly, another scuffle would occur soon after this, with HCI accidentally screen sharing the base to Perstrix, a member of Team V. Things were turning really bad now. Almost all active members of Babylon came online, preparing for a self-grief. However, HCI managed to convince Perstrix to not grieve Babylon. How? Well, they knew each other in real life and they didn't really want to have a fight about Minecraft, so Perstrix agreed not to grieve Babylon. This created a ceasefire between Team V and Babylon, and this was commemorated by a statue. After this alliance, some select members of Team V and some other popular players got coordinates to the base. Players like Mirjandro, Wexor and Mopol visited the base and saw it in person. It looked like things were going pretty well for Babylon. However, that all changed when a new group called the Holy Inquisition was founded. The group was unironically racist and homophobic, and Grafen himself was the worst offender. On February of 2021, the Holy Inquisition demanded that the group Babylon changed its name because it has a sinful reference to the Bible. Babylon refused this, and the next day Babylon would be grieved by THI. The grief lasted for about an hour, but the grieving had to stop because THI ran out of TNT and flint and steels. After THI left, the base was surprisingly recognizable. However, after the grief, Babylon had to say goodbye to the base they cherished, and they continued to work on the new megabase, Castranova. Sometime later, Castranova got griefed as well, and later on the server shut down. It is time for the base tour. Oh my god, I have spent hours, so many hours, days working on this video. It's finally completely edited and like done. You know, everything you guys saw before is done by now. And I waited all the way to the end to record the base tour so I can actually like take it all in after studying Specterium and Babylon to the fullest. I read over the wiki like so many times. Oh my god, the script writing for this video was terrible. It was like the longest process ever, and the editing, dude, don't even get me started on editing. It was terrible, but it paid off. I love how the video turned out, and I can't wait to now finally explore the base. So we begin here in the Hanging Gardens built by Sigma over Pi. Also, the House of the Dragon Egg is right here. And sadly, all the books don't work. They weren't put into the world download, which is pretty sad. But you know, some things just get lost in time. It happens like that. But man, these Hanging Gardens, Sigma over Pi is an insane builder, bro. Like everyone at this base, not just Sigma. Everyone that lived here was insane at building. So let's start here at the harbor. Harbor is one of my favorite places of the base. It's so cute. It's built so beautifully. Oh my god. Can you imagine that ships actually worked in Minecraft? Fuck, dude. I wish. That would be so cool. Maybe one day, you know? That would be a nice addition to Minecraft. Now here's the first building of Babylon, the ziggurat built by Tina's Tongue. And I don't think I fully shown the ziggurat in the video, like the underground part of it. You could see it a little bit in the grief part, but let me show you guys, because this is fucking insane. This is actually insane. Look at this. It's an entire like villager trading hall, but like mega level. You know what I mean? It's fucking insane. Look at how big this is. What a trading hall. Beautiful place. You know, the attention to detail to this Megabase is actually insane. All the walls are detailed. You know, the work that Sigma over Pi did with all these things. Man, this beautiful village. I wish I could build villages like this, you know. Even though they're all the same house, you don't notice it, right? Because when they all come together, it's like one big city, and that's what makes it so cool. I just can't get over these walls. They're so epic, bro. These walls, oh my god. Hell yeah. Then you have all the farm areas by HCI Chaosic, I think it was, that helped him with it. And while this world download was taken before the entire base was finished, there are a few more buildings in the finished base. But sadly they didn't take a world download of that because, well, of course they couldn't know that the base was about to get griefed, right? Here is the gold farm. It's a not massive one, you know, it could have been bigger. I love when bases don't just think about the farms, but also think about the aesthetics around the farms. Every building in here has its function, right? The ziggurat has the trading hall. This has the gold farm. And under a pyramid is a massive iron farm. And even this iron farm just looks so good. And that's what I like about this base, that I don't just focus on building the farms, because everyone can make a farm. It's special when groups focus on the aesthetics of a base more than, you know, the efficiency of farms. And something that I haven't mentioned in the video is that the Tower of Babel actually is one big creeper farm. Look, it's a creeper farm. So even the Tower of Babel has its own function. And yeah, this tower is also built by Sigma over Pi. But yeah, you can go all the way up here. And here you have a little room for music discs. I don't know. But it's a beautiful place to be at, to look at the city. Like, I spent so many hours learning everything there is about Babylon and the groups that they associated with on Specterium, that walking around here, I just feel, it almost feels like I lived part of this history, right? Just reading so much about it. It's so insane. The gates to Babylon also look amazing on video. One of the most fun things I found about this place is that it's very aesthetically pleasing, so making replay mod footage is a lot of fun. And the render that Znojmok made, I don't know if you guys have seen the thumbnail, but the thumbnail was actually a render completely made in Blender, so it took many hours, and Znojmok actually made that. He's super talented guy. He also plays on Uneasy Vanilla, so shout out to Znojmok. The base just looks so good when it's rendered, and just looking around like, bro, it's so beautiful. Now guys, I wanted to do something. So, you know how now we've seen the base in its full glory. Now I asked Edok for a world download of Babylon, but the griefed version. So Specterium shut down, but Edok of course still has the world downloads of the entire server. So I gave him the codes of Babylon and he gave me a world download of the griefed Babylon so I could look around. So let's take a look at it and see how much damage was actually done to this beautiful megabase. Well, right now we are standing on the same place where we started the previous base tour. Damn bro, the hanging gardens have had better days. Oof. Yeah, this is really fucked up. There's not much recognizable here. You kind of see the outline a little bit, but it looks kind of sad. And take a look at the rest of this base. Oh my god. Yep. This is Babylon. Hey, that ship is still pretty much intact, right? I mean, the gold farm is pretty recognizable. And the arena, that has seen better days as well. Well, this is not how the base looked after the Holy Inquisition griefed it, by the way. Not at all. The base looked way more intact after the Holy Inquisition came through. I'm just guessing that a lot of other groups came to Babylon to grief it. Or the Holy Inquisition just came back to grief it more. But after the grief, the base was pretty much intact, and you can probably see it at the end of the grief that not that much damage was done by THI in the first grief. But right now, yeah, this base is gone. There's no, there's barely any wall left. And the Tower of Babel is just a lava cast. Yep. Oh my god, man, what the fuck? Why would people go to such lengths to grief the base? Like, it was already gone and destroyed. Like, come on, man. It's like unrecognizable right now. Holy shit, it's just like TNT bomber went over this. But yeah, this is how Babylon looked like on the last day of Specterium before it shut down. Pretty insane looking back on it, you know, on all the things that Babylon did as a group and this beautiful base that they built. If I wasn't here to make this video, even though it took me way too fucking long and it was like terrible to write the video and make it, at the end of the day, I'm very happy that I made this video. I just think it's a very cool story that I had to just tell. Now, of course, I didn't do this video all by myself. I had a lot of help, like the stories, everything came from Sigma over Pi and 8CI. They provided me with most of the information and of course the wiki, so anyone that's you know, edited the wiki back when Specterium was still live, well, you guys helped me make this video as well. Yeah, but especially Sigma over Pi. He helped me so much and he's a super nice guy, so shout out Sigma over Pi. Thank you. But right now, I think it's finally time to end the video that I've been working on for so long. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Join the Discord. And you know, leave a like on the video while you're at it. You know, I don't know if liking videos does anything, but why the hell not, right? I hope you enjoyed the video. I really enjoyed making it. I guess this is how every base ends in Anarchy.